Good morning, Morai Barabotai, Bruchim Abayim. We're continuing on Masechet Makkot, and we are on Daf Gimel, Amud Bet, 3 lines down from the wide lines. Today's Amud is being learned, the Schul Refuah Shelema of Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, Yael Bat Loren Esther Shoshana, and for the Hatzlacha and Yeshua of Arvin Netanel Ben Sonia. We started digressing really from the actual core sugya that we started with Ben Gerusha, Ben Chalutza, the connection with Edim Zomemim. Of course, that's the core of Masechet Makkot. And now we are going to digress a little bit to an Amud until the Mishnah of different digressions. So says the Gemara, Tana malvet chavero stam, eno rashai letov'o pachot milamed yom. If you lend to your friend and you don't specify what the date is, says, can I have $1,000? Yes, sure, here it is. And then next week you want to call him and say, I need the money. Can he say, well, we didn't specify any dates, so give me some time? What is exactly the backdrop of lending money when it comes to stam halva'ah, when it comes to an unspecified loan when the loan is due? So it says in the Gemara, stam halva'ah, you're not allowed to demand the money back until 30 days. Why aren't you allowed to do it less than 30 days? Savar Rabba Bar Bar Chana Kameh, the Rav Lememar. Rabba Bar Bar Chana, who is usually a student of Rabbi Yochanan, over here he is in front of Rav. Interestingly, we spoke about this before, that Rav and Rabbi Yochanan both were the students of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. The Gemara in Masechet Chulin, Daf Kuf Lamed Zayin, the Gemara there says that Rabbi Yochanan, even though that, by the way, Rav versus Rabbi Yochanan, halakha normally is like Rabbi Yochanan. But Rabbi Yochanan there is stating that he considers Rav his Rabbi. Even though that we learned in Masechet Brachot Daf Hey, that Rabbi Yochanan was very proud of being in Eretz Yisrael. He says, you could only learn Torah in Eretz Yisrael, the longevity is only in Eretz Yisrael. But he said, Itli Rav beBavel, my rabbi lives in Eretz Yisrael, in Bavel. And he said, I recall when me and Rav were together, we spoke about this last year, that Rav was a very, healthy person. He lived a very blessed, long life. So Rav, together with Rabbi Yochanan, who also lived a long life, were in the shiur of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. And Rabbi Yochanan says, I remember when we were there together in the shiur, Rav sat 17 shuras in front of me. 17 rows. Back then, it wasn't based on how rich and famous you were where you sat. It was based on how big you were. The greater people sat in front of the yeshiva, and based on your level, you were determined where you sat. So Rav sat 17 shuras, 17 rows in front of me, and when he started speaking and learning in the middle of the shiur with Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, nobody had a clue what they were talking about. There was such lofty level. I say, Rabban Kotler of Lakewood once visited. He was in Slusk. He was in the city of Slusk. He once visited the city of Rogichover Gaon. Rabbi Yosef Rosen, who was in Minsk, he went there, and when you went there, if you were someone big, you had to go see the Rogichover. So someone was there when he came to see the Rogichover Gaon. He said for 8 hours they were straight. 8 hours straight they were talking and learning. So the guy asked him, he said, what were you saying? He said, I had no clue. It started with one sentence, and then the rest of the 8 hours was just shooting at each other sources. What do you do with the Tosfot in this Masechta, this stuff? And then it says, oh, you saw the Ran over there. He said, the whole thing, they knew what they were saying, but I had no clue. This guy was a big Talmid Chacham. So you have like a different level. That's Rabbi Yochanan versus Rav. So again, Rav Bar Chana is a student of Rabbi Yochanan, but over here he is in Bavel, sitting in front of Rav. And he wanted to say the following. This, that you have 30 days to pay That's only by milveh bishtar. That means, if who paid for the scribe to make a document? The loveh. If you wanted to borrow $1,000, you would take a scribe, and he would document the loan, and you would sign on it, edim, and that was your loan, right? So you have to pay for it. You have to schlep the guy there. It's a whole tararam. It's not like a print a document off the printer. So says the Gemara, he wanted to say that maybe only by milveh bishtar, when you are documenting the loan, then you have 30 days. Because if it was less than 30 days, it's not kedai. It's not kedai, the tircha, that you have to go schlep a scribe and write it and wait for it and sign to edim. But if you do milveh balpeh, halemili milveh bishtar, the lo avid inish the tarach, because a person is not going to go through the tircha, through the trouble, the kataf shtar of writing, getting a scribe, documenting for less than 30 days. Only if it's a long-term loan, it's like a chashuv loan, that's when you do milveh bishtar. Aval milveh al peh, but maybe when you just go to somebody and says, can I borrow, whatever X amount of dollars, pay back, whatever it is, and he just gives it to you, maybe that already is less than 30 days. So lo, Amar le Rav. Now this is Rabba Bar Chana, who is a younger generation. He's the first generation of second generation of Amoraim. He's telling to Rav this, and Rav answers him the halacha. What's the halacha, Rabotai? When you borrow from someone just balpeh, what's the halacha? Here is the halacha. Says Rav, Haki Amar Chabibi. My Chabibi, Rav, was the nephew of Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia is one of the Gedolei Tanaim. He was the right-hand man of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. So in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the greatest name was Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia was the uncle of Rav, right? So it's interesting. Dodi, Dod, means my dear one, it also means my uncle. So here is his uncle, he calls him Chabibi, right? Rav always calls Rabbi Chia, his uncle, Chabibi. Says, this is what Rabbi Chia said, doesn't make a difference if it's a documented loan or if it's milveh al peh, both of them is going to be 30-day period. Tanya Nami Hachiv, you also learned this in Braita, hamalveh et chavero. When you lend your friend money, stam, you don't specify the terms of loan of how many days it's going to be. You're not allowed to ask him to demand less than 30 days. Doesn't make a difference if it's a documented loan or if it's just the stam bal peh. The term of a loan, when not delineated in the actual conversation, will be 30 days. So if you go to him next week, you say, give me my $5,000 that I gave you, he could say, well, I'm sorry, thank you so much for lending me, but, I have 30 days to pay back, and that will be the halacha. So it says, the Gemara, Amar Shmuel the Rab Matna. Shmuel told Rab Matna, Lo tetev. Who is Rab Matna, by the way? Anyone knows? Rab Matna is the 11th son of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan was a Bali Yisurim, Rachman Litzlan. He lost 10 sons. 10 of his sons died. Rachman Litzlan. The Gemara we had in Daf Hey in Masechet Makkot that he kept a small bone from his 10th son, and he would carry it around with him to go be Menachem Avelim. The people who went through difficulties, he would say, look, he would show them, he said, Da Garma de Asira Bir. This is the bone of my 10th son. And he would use that, his sarot, his difficulties, in order to give nechama to people. So the Gemara says when he had the 11th son, Rab Matna, he sent him from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, that maybe Meshane Makom, Meshane Mazal. Right? He should be a different mazal. And that's Rab Matna over here that is talking with Shmuel. By the way, now we're speaking of Shmuel, that Gemara that we mentioned in Masechet Chulin, Kula Ben Zayin, the Gemara says when Rav passed away, Shmuel sent, he wanted for Rabbi Yochanan to be connected with him because he didn't know about the greatness of Shmuel. Shmuel was tremendous. Gemara says Shmuel sent Rabbi Yochanan 300 camel loads. Whenever the Gemara says number 300, the Maharsha writes, it's guzma. right? It doesn't mean 300 camel loads of questions. It means a lot. He sent him tremendous, lengthy list of questions on sefekot in terefut re'ah, in the halachot of kashrut of re'ah. He said that Rabbi Yochanan read this. He said, "Whoa, this person is like Rav." He said, "Okay, my rabbi died. He's my new rabbi." He announced Shmuel as his new rabbi, right? So whether or not this happened afterwards or not, I don't know. But their student, one of the students of Shmuel, was the son of Rabbi Yochanan, none other than our own Rav Matna. So in any case, says Shmuel told Rav Matna, "Lo titiv akarech, don't sit down." He came inside the Beit Midrash, says, "Don't sit until he explained to me until you get a clear pshat in this shmata, this Gemara. Mena hamilta de Amar Rabbanan, hamalvet chaverostam in rashay letovo pachot milamed yom." Find me at least a smuchin. Find me something to hang my hat on. Why is stam halva'ah? Where do you get this? That stam halva'ah, that an unexplained term, well, a halva'ah, a loan that was not explained exactly the terminology of what the last day of halva'ah is going to be lo pachod mi lamed yom. It's going to be none less than 30 days. So it says, and we learned that the Braita says there's no difference between if it's a documented loan or is the milveh al peh. So it says, Shmuel, how do you know this? Amaleh, Rav Matna answered him, Tichtiv, Rabbanan learned it from this pasuk. Karva shnata sheva, shnata shemitah. Right? That's actually pretty amazing because we have this in this week's the Shemitah is in this Mamash, this week's Parsha again. So Shnata Sheva, Shnata Shemitah. As I ask you a question, when you say Karva Shnata Sheva, why do you have to say Shnata Shemitah? What's Shnata Sheva? If the Torah would just says Karva Shnata Sheva, what would you think? It's talking about the Jubilee, or of course it's talking about Shemitah, right? So it's superfluous. It's redundant. Well, why do you need? So it says Rav Matna is coming to teach you two things. First of all, you realize that this is talking about not collecting money, right? Because Shnat Shemitah, you can no longer collect the money. So the pasuk is talking about a year, a period of time that you cannot collect money. So it says Rav Matna, Shnat Sheva is talking about the Shemitah year. Shnat Shemitah, which is redundant, is coming to teach you that there is another year, that period of time, that you can also not collect money, just like Shemitah. Just like Shemitah, lo yigos, you cannot collect. There is another period of time that's called a year, that you also not collect money, and that is the period of loan for first 30 days. Now, the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Daf Yud says that sometimes Lamed Yom, 30 days, is called a year. Without getting into the depth of why that is, but 30-day period, it could be called a year as well. So says Rav Matna, that's where Chazal saw it. That it says Shnata Sheva, Shnata Shemitah is giving you a hint that sometimes you have a whole month that lo yigos, you cannot demand your money back, the loan that you gave back. And where is that? That's when you did not specify the terms of loan. Then it will be a minimum of 30 days. If you say, tomorrow pay me back, in the beginning when you're giving the money, you could determine any term you want. But if you didn't, if you just gave the money like that, then it will be a minimum of 30 days. It says the 30 days. It says the Gemara. This is what we explained. We're just going to read it inside. When it says Shnata Sheva, don't I already know that it's Shnata Shemitah? So why do you have to say Shnata Shemitah repeated again? Why does he have to repeat Shnata Shemitah? To teach you. There is another period of time that you have to be hands off and you cannot demand your money. Sheikazu, which is the same halacha of not demanding a loan, and that will be a person that lends without determining clearly in the beginning what the timeline of the loan is, which would be a minimum of 30 days. That you're not allowed to demand your money back, demand the payment, less than 30 days. This is now we're in the first wide line. Because we learned that sometimes 30 days in a year is considered a year. Right? That's the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Daf Yud Amud Bet that we mentioned. So says the Gemara. So that's one tangent. Another tangent. Says the Gemara, Ve'amar Rav Yudah Amar Rav. Rav Yudah said in the name of Rav, Hapotech bet savar b'Shabbat chayav chatat. If you are creating a garment, so the way they did it back in the day, nowadays, the sock companies or the t-shirt companies, you have sophisticated machinery that they make the top part. It's a different type of, back in the day it wasn't like that. You would sew up the whole thing, and it was closed. Up here it was closed, like a bag, and then they would open it and then flip the corners, basically, make a lip for it around, sewing the beta savar in a way that it will not rip. But that's how they did it. So if you have made a garment and it looks like a sack, it looks like a bag, right? Now you want to open the beta savar, you want to cut that open and wear it. So if you do that on Shabbat, what did you do? What do you do? Makeh b'patish. That means metaken mana. We call the isur metaken mana. You are creating a garment. Until now, it's not a garment. This is a sack. This is a bag, right? Now, when you open the thing, now you can wear it. Now it became a garment. So you fixed the garment. Metaken mana, which the isur of it in the 39 melachot of Shabbat is, as was said, makeh b'patish. You're completing a job. Now, why aren't you chayav because of korea? You're tearing? Anyone? Because this is not korea al minat litfor. In halachot of Shabbat, korea, tearing, is also one of the 39 melachot of Shabbat. But that's only if the tearing is al minat litfor, in order to sew up afterwards and fix it. If it's not, al menat litfor. But Rambam doesn't hold like that. Rambam holds that any tear, that the tearing itself is a fix, you're chayav chatat. That's one of the lamed tet melachot. And therefore, this memra of Rav Yudah Amar Rav, Rambam puts it in Hilchot Korea. So according to Rambam, according to Rashi over here, you're chayav because of metaken mana makeh patish. According to Rambam, you're chayav because of korea. Pashtud, you will be also chayav because of makeh patish. But simply put, when you tear and the tear itself is a fix, that by itself is already equivalent and tantamount to korea al minat litpor. It doesn't have to be al minat. Al minat litpor just makes it that the tear is a fix. That's all it is. So therefore, according to Rambam, you're chayav because of korea. Why is it a big deal to know what chayav you are? Anyways, you got to go to a very warm place, right? In any case, and all paths, right? And in a very so the thing is, if you want to give hatra to this person, you have to give a proper hatra, right? We'll see this is going to be a whole sugya in our masechta. If you give wrong hatra, so don't do this. If you do it, you're chayav mishum korea. Well, if the halacha is not like Rambam, the guy doesn't get a punishment because you gave him wrong atra'ah. You have to give the proper atra'ah, and therefore it's important to know what exactly the isur is. So says the Gemara, Chayav chatad matkif la Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana says, wait a second. V'chima ben zeh lemekufat chavit. The lid of a barrel, when you open that, when you break that open, that's mutar. Here you're opening the top of a garment. Over there you're opening the top of a barrel. What's the difference? So says the Gemara, of course, you know how different it is? Shamayim v'aretz difference. Amaleh ze chibur v'ze eno chibur. Says one of them is the first time you're opening it, so therefore it's makeh patish and tzakeh mana. The other one It was open, you plugged it, and now you're just taking the plug off. You're opening something that was open before, therefore, of course, is different. V'amar, Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, again, once we're at it, we're bringing all these members from Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav. Shlosha lugin mayim. Oh, now we get into mikvaot, right? And it's, it's awesome how in 3 lines you have like 3 massive sugyas in Shas, right? Now we're entering the biggest one yet. So says the Gemara, Shlosha lugin mayim shenafal letochan kortov shel yain. Let me give a preface. For mikveh to be kasher, you need 40 se'ah of mayim, which is a natural body of water. So you either need to go into a sea or into a river, and I'm saying this with trepidation because river could have issues of, they're not bashboret, they're not gathered in one place, but we don't need to explain all the differences. A natural body of water is considered a kosher mikveh if you have 40 se'ah for a person, right? Less than 40 se'ah for other things. You want to have a machad, a needle, you could do it in even small place. Natural. If you want to gather and create a mikveh of your own, then you need rainwater to be gathered there naturally. You can't go say, oh, well, the river is running 10 feet away, so I'm just going to bucket some water from the kosher mikveh and put it here. Because the moment you bucket it, it becomes mayim shuvim. Now it's drawn water, it's pasul, finished. Not only that, sometimes if you have a kosher mikveh, you could render it invalid. For instance, if you have made a mikveh, and this happens all the time. Nowadays, the way they make mikvahot is you have an otzar on the side, which you don't see to the naked eye because it's covered usually, and then that otzar is connected with the actual pool of water that you go in, right? So the otzar, when they actually want to make it filled with rainwater, you'll see the rabbi gets inside there, gets all dirty, and he's drying with towel, making sure. Why are you drying it? You're going to be putting 1,000 gallons of water inside there, for God's sake. So you want free droplets matter? Yes, because there's a halacha that if you have even a minute amount of water, right? Shlosha login, little bit. Every log is 6 betzas. Kabetza, right? 57 grams. 6 of that is a log. It's a liter of water, right? And if you have shlosha login of mayim shuvim, pasul water, inside, and then you pour on it mei mikveh, the rainwater comes on and fills up the whole thing is pasul, right? Now, if you have a kosher mikveh of 40 se'ah, then you put hose water on it, that's kasher, because you already have a kosher mikveh. Adding to it is fine. But if what you have on the bottom in the beginning, as the rainwater is coming in, is shlosha login of mayim shuvim, the whole thing, as they come, every drop becomes pasul, more pasul, right? So that's one halacha. And now you have another halacha. If you have a mikveh that's not, it's less than shlosha login, and then things get mixed with it. Let's say wine gets mixed with it. Is it kasher? Is it not kasher? That becomes the discussion, which is going to be machloket Tanaim, and certainly machloket Amoraim in our sugya, which is what we're going to discuss. Let's start it at least. Let's start it. Says the Gemara, V'amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. 4 lines down up from the bottom of the Amud. Shlosha lugin mayim. If you have this 3 login of water, mayim shuvim, right, that you took in bucket and now it's pasul, right? Shnafal letochan kortov shel yayin. That a little wine fell into it and now it looks like watered down wine. That's what it looks like, right? Umar ehen kimar yayin. It looks like watered down wine. Venaflu le mikveh, and they fall into a mikveh. Lo pasluhu, they don't passel the water. Even though that if it was only water, in this case, it would passel the water. So says the Gemara, Matkifla Rav Kana. Rav Kana asked the question, what's the difference between this and colored water? Imagine if a person that was in wool business and they would dye the wool, they wash their hands after dyeing wool in the water, and that water becomes blue, whatever it is, right? And if you put metzeva in the mikveh, which also is colored, ditnan, in the Mishnah Mikvaot we learned, Rabbi Yossi Omer, metzeva poslin et mikveh b'shlosha lugin. If you have shlosha lugin of metzeva, you pour in the mikveh is pasul, right? So what's the difference? You have purple wine-looking water, and you pour it in shlosha lugin kasher, metzeva pasul. Machiluk, what's the difference? Says the Gemara, Amale Rava, Hatamaya de Seva Mikri. It depends on the name of it. What do people relate this to? If you say this blue water is exactly that, blue water, right? So it's called water. What's the halacha? You plug it into the klalim. What's the halacha? Shlosha lugin of water in the mikveh? Pasul. So whether it's clear water or it's colored water, if it's water, then it passes it. But when you have the kortov shel yayin, when you have the diluted wine, what is it called? Exactly that, diluted wine. People say, oh, this is diluted wine. If you have wine that falls into mikveh, does it passel it? No, because wine is not water. Wine does not disqualify a mikveh, right? Does not disqualify a mikveh. And therefore, hacha chamra meziga mikri. Here is called diluted wine, and it's going to be fine. Now, I want to give a 1-minute haktama for tomorrow's Gemara, which is very interesting. Chazal had concerns about mikvaot, and therefore you have some halachot built in even today. You'll find that Ashkenazim, at the very least, when they go to mikveh, you find many people, even for men, right? This is like chumrah on top of chumrah on top of chumrah. The Haravadia, in a footnote in Tarat Bait, says like, forget about at all. You don't have to be machmir for this, because even for women it's only for taharot. So for men it's like it's an acrobatic chumrah on top of chumrah. So therefore he's not machmir. But you'll find, if you pay attention next time you go to mikveh, right, you'll find many people refrain from taking a little, even simple shower after the mikveh. They go to mikveh, they came out as smelly as it could be, as green as it could be, as full of chlorine as he may be. They just get dressed and they go home, and they will refrain from why would they refrain from taking a shower? Because of this mayim shuvim business. Because in the time of Chazal, the natural bodies of water were very dirty. Shechin and ma'arot, it was dirty water. So what they used to do was, after they came off from the mikveh, they would pour a bucket of clean water on to just clean up. But what happened was, people started saying that's not the mikveh that makes you clean, but it's the water you pour afterwards. So that's stage one. And then stage two is like, why do you need the mikveh to begin with? It's anyways the clean water that you put, right? And then, so Chazal said, okay, we're going to make the most acrobatic chumras in the world to make sure that that doesn't happen. Because you're talking about karet over here. Forget about taharot, that you have teruma, chayav mitah b'deshamayim, blah, blah, blah. But for, nowadays even, things that happen, if the mikveh is not kasher, and husband and wife are together, and she's considered nida, chayav karet, both of them, right? So we don't want to play games with Taharat Yisrael. Therefore, they made a lot of very interesting chumras when it comes to mayim shuvim, to water that's not kasher for mikveh, and we will study some fascinating sugya tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem, about this.